words caused my world to come to a halt. I mean, I could hear the people screaming and crying around me, but for the life of me, I couldn't move. I'm pregnant, I said to myself. That answers so many questions. Like why over the last couple of weeks, he's been going down on one knee and kissing my belly before he headed out in the morning. Or why he sometimes put his hand on my stomach and just hold it there for a while.
Ty, help me!
Gina cried, bringing me out of my stupor. She was trying to close the door as what looked like a blood fiend tried to reach in and grab her. I snapped into action, operating more on instinct than thought. Snatching my knife from my thigh sheath, I palmed the handle in my hand before slicing off the arm that was sticking in the door. It let out a loud screech that was nowhere near human, but that didn't stop it from throwing its weight against the door angrily. Quickly, pushing Gina out the way, I kicked the door open and it spilled in. Using its forward momentum, I brought my knife up and stabbed it in its neck, killing it. Another fiend charged in after it. I did a roundhouse kick, sending it flying back out the door. Another followed behind it. My mind went on autopilot. I was pregnant with a son. I had to protect my son. Bringing my knife up, I slit his throat before delivering another kick to another fiend that tried to push through the door. With a battle cry very similar to Monroe's, I brought my knife up high, jumping in the air, using my weight to bring it straight down into the head of the last fiend that was trying to enter. When I was done, the 5 bodies lay on the ground around my feet. The wind and the rain was coming down so fiercely, it took me using all my strength to slam the door shut, before helping Gina push the cabinet up against it. When I turned around, everybody except for Gina was staring at me with their mouths hanging open. I didn't know you were a warrior. Serenity, Monroe's aunt, gushed from where she stood clutching a weeping Jacob in her arms. Justice must have pushed her inside the clinic before he joined Monroe. A male scream came from the garden area. I raced to the back of the clinic to look through the window, but the rain was falling so hard I could barely see. The scream came again. I recognized Heman's voice. I didn't think twice before snatching open the metal door. "Shut this door behind me!" I yelled at Gina before I hurried out into the storm. The sky was full of dark black clouds that made it seem as if it was night. Bass, Jazz, Doughboy, Keys, and Heman were being attacked by some fiends that were spilling over the gate in droves. Dear Yah, where were they all coming from? A fiend had a hold of Heman, and he was biting into his neck. The other members of my band were doing the best they could to keep them off of him. There was no way I would make it to him in time to save his life. So I lifted my knife and I sent it sailing into the air to embed into the fiend's head that was biting him. My friend's body slid from its lifeless hands. Dog leaped over the fence and went for the throat of the fiend that was closest to me. Quickly, I snatched my knife out of the monster's head and took out 2 more of them, giving Jazz and Doughboy a chance to carry a dying Heman into the clinic. I could hear Gina calling for me to come back in, but there was no going back for me. Bass, Keys, and I were surrounded on all sides by fiends, and more continued to spill in the yard. "Lock that door! Now!" I yelled at her as I embedded my knife in another monster's chest before kicking it off my blade. The rain was falling so hard that we were all slipping through the mud. Hallelujah, Bass and Keys had actually learned something from all the training they'd been forced to take, because they were doing a pretty damn good job taking down the fiends that came their way. Bass used one of the metal chairs as if it was a bat, and Keys Jazz's horn. Dog continued to fight at my side. Her white coat was covered in blood. But no matter how much we fought, they continued to come. I could see Keys was getting weary. "Don't stop fighting," I yelled as I went down into a sweep, taking out another fiend. We were gonna die. There was too many of them. Dear Yah, not like this. Please, not like this. Keys yelled out as a fiend bit him in the back. I ran to him and I jumped into the air, locking my legs around the fiend's neck before going into a backflip, sending it flying over our head away from Keys. My friend hit the ground. He was hurt badly. Bates, help him in. I will cover you, I told him as I embedded my knife in another fiend's throat before grabbing the horn that Keys had abandoned. Swinging up with all my might, I clipped a fiend that used to be a woman under her chin. She threw herself at me. Impact of the blow took the whole lower half of her face off.
What about you?
Bates yelled over the fierce wind. I can't drag Keys into the building. You're gonna have to do it. I will cover your back. Tears came to his eyes as he shook his head, but he didn't argue. Reaching down, he grabbed a hold of Keys and began to quickly make his way into the building. It was at this point where time seemed to slow way down. Although I know the next couple events happened in a matter of seconds, it seemed as if it was hours. I turned my head to look back and make sure my friends had made it in safely. The look in Bates' eyes was that of extreme agony. He just now realized what I already knew. I was getting ready to die. There were too many. I needed to fight until they got that door closed. When it opened, Jazz was there holding a screaming Griot back. She yelled for me to come back in with tears in her eyes. I smiled at her before turning and smashing a horn in another's face. Dog was doing the best she could. She was gonna die with me. A fierce gust of wind blew, taking me off my feet. As I was going down, a big fiend came down on top of me. His eyes were completely black. There was no signs of life inside of them at all. I punched him with all my might, but he was so big. His body was crushing me. He held my head in his palms as he tried to bite my face. I cried out and I punched him again. He smelled like all things fire as he continued to snap at me with his rotted teeth that looked like canines. Ty, I heard Monroe call before he was leaping over the gate. Right then, lightning flashed, highlighting his powerful body. For just a moment, it looked like one of Yah's avenging angels was coming for me. At the same time, he tossed one of his chrome pistols to me. I caught it, but I don't know how. At this point, my body was operating without my mind. A scream ripped from my throat as it took all the strength I had left in my body to point the pistol at the thing's head and pull the trigger. It was the feel of its blood splattering on my face and neck that sent me into shock. For just a moment, I didn't know if I was bitten or dying or what. I could hear Monroe and his wolves taking out the fiends that continued to spill in the yard. But, dear Yah, am I dead? The big body was snatched off me, and I was able to breathe. Thirstily, I sucked air into my starved lungs. My husband appeared over me. In the next instant, I was in his arms, and he was running with me. I blinked the rain out of my eyes as I watched the wolves hold the fiends off, giving us a chance to escape. The small backyard was flooded with them. When we were clear, they began to follow us. Closing my eyes, I thanked Yah when I saw Dog leap the fence in one piece. Hallelujah. I didn't worry about the fiends getting to the clinic because there was a metal door on the front and the back. Those that were inside were safe for now.
Ty,
Monroe's voice came to me, but my mind was still in shock and I could not register what he was saying. I blinked at him as he continued to carry me through the streets that were on fire. Everything was burning. There were so many dead. Oh yeah, there were so many dead.
baby, listen to me. There is an accursed item inside the camp. You have to find it. Go with Abir and find it. As long as it's here, Yah's protection will not be.
He set me on my feet. My eyes widened as what looked like a dragon flew over our head. It opened its mouth, letting out an ear-piercing screech before a blast of fire shot out its mouth, burning a group of people that were trying to escape. I covered my ears to try to drown out the demonic sound, or maybe to try to drown out the sound of the people screaming who were now burning from its fire. Why was this happening to us?
Ty!
Monroe shook me again, gaining my attention.
Baby, I need you.
He needs me? I blinked at him, forcing myself to focus on his words. He needs me. What's happening? I asked him.
There is an accursed item amongst us. You have to go with Abir and find it. Don't stop until you do. I will cover your back.
I nodded and I took off after Abir. He ran to the area where the new arrivals were. I could see the judge frantically searching through people's belongings as Justice fought at his back to keep the blood fiends and the dragons away from him. I looked back at Monroe, just as one of those dragon things swooped down, coming for me. A scream froze in my throat. But my husband's sword was deadly, and its big body joined the many others that littered the ground. It looked like they had a system worked out. Monroe's men fought the army of fiends, while Justice and Monroe fought the dragons. I quickly followed Abir as he leapt over bodies and dodged blood fiends. He ran to a spot on the other side of the fuel truck, where there were at least 100 people hiding. He didn't stop until he reached a couple that was hunched down low on the ground. Using his sharp teeth, he began to pull at the woman's bag. "Stop it," she cried, swatting at the wolf. She had an accent that I couldn't quite place. French, maybe Haitian, but she definitely wasn't American. The man holding her looked as if he'd come from one of the islands.
Hey, stop it!
He yelled at Abir, who continued to growl and pull at the woman's bag. By the time I made it to them, the couple drew back, afraid of me. I must be quite a sight, covered in blood, still clutching Monroe's gun in my hand. I pointed the gun at the woman's head. "Give me your bag." My voice was so hoarse it was barely there. With shaking hands, she handed over her bag. Just then, a fiend came our way, screeching in his excitement to finding so many live bodies together. I lifted the gun without looking away from the woman and blew its head off. Before I ripped open the bag, tears came to my eyes when I saw the well-used tarot cards inside. No wonder. I took them out and Abir snatched the vile things from my hands with his teeth and ran full speed toward the gate. Once he was through, that fierce wind cut off as if by a switch. It was so suddenly, it threw my equilibrium off, and I had to take a moment to steady myself. The downpour of rain stopped as if it came from a giant faucet that had just been turned off. I looked up just as both Monroe and Justice's bodies jerked violently before being strung tight. Both of their heads shot back at the same time as a burst of light shot from their eyes, brightening the sky. When they saw it, one of the dragons let out a loud warning screech. Instantly, the fiends and the other dragons began to retreat, but Monroe and Justice wasn't having none of that. I fell to my knees and watched them as they began to slay. Monroe ran and leaped in the air. Using one foot, he propelled himself off the truck onto the back of one of the dragons. Using his hands, he twisted the neck of the thing until it was no longer connected to his body. Justice threw his sword, sending it sailing through the air to embed in the chest of one of them. As the body was falling to the ground, he leapt in the air, snatching his sword out of its chest before propelling himself off of it and flying through the air to let out a loud roar as he brought his sword down into the head of another. The bodies continued to pile up around Monroe and Justice as they destroyed all who fell under their hands. The light was too much for the fiends. As it shined on them, they dropped to the ground and began to convulse violently before death. The other fiends, who managed to dodge the light, was trampling each other in order to get through the gate away from the warriors. And then there was silence. Monroe and Justice stood surrounded by bodies, breathing heavily.
looking around without seeing. They had become hosts, and their bodies no longer moved like humans. Their heads jerked around as they angrily took in all the people that remained, the living and the dead. And then Monroe opened his mouth and let out a loud roar of rage. The ground shook violently as what felt like an earthquake hit. Justice held back his head and he roared in rage. What was happening? Everybody that was standing fell to their knees, not able to remain standing on their feet with the ground shaking so fiercely. The judge stumbled around the rage-filled Monroe and Justice. "Pray with me!" His voice rang out, reaching the ears of all the living. "Pray that Yah's wrath turn away from us."
He rent his shirt.
"We allowed the accursed among us. Pray that he forgives us and turn back his wrath."
He fell to his face and began to pray. Several of the elders crawled to him and joined him. Tears came to my eyes as I fell to my face. A rage-filled sound came from my husband just as I began to beseech the Father. We had grown lax. We had forgotten what was going on in the world around us. Our voices lifted into the air as we began to pray as a unit, begging Abba Yah to forgive us and restore us to his favor. How could we have allowed such a thing to happen? A shiver went through me, and I opened my mouth and I began to sing Psalms 32. The melody came to me as clear as day. I came to my knees so that my voice could fill the streets, singing like I'd never sung before. I sang with everything within me, begging Yah for his forgiveness. My body raked with the feelings I had never felt before. We acknowledge our sin to you, O Heavenly Father, and our crookedness we did not hide. I have said I confess my transgressions to you, Yah, and you forgive the crookedness of our sin. Salah. Therefore, let every loving committed one pray to you while you might be found. Even in a flood of great waters, they would not reach him who prays to you. You are my hiding place. You preserve us from distress. You surround me with songs of deliverance. I don't know how long I sang. The words were coming to me as if I wrote them. They were like fire and I needed to get them out of my soul. The more I sang, the more my body went numb, until I was no longer in control. Something had taken over me and was controlling the sound that came from my lips. When finally it let me go, and I was once again in control to bring the song that came from me to an end, I was surrounded by silence. I didn't want to open my eyes because I was afraid of what I was going to see. I felt strong hands lift me from the ground and put me gently on my feet. I opened my eyes just in time to see that white film cover Monroe.
"It's okay, baby,"
he whispered, before taking me into his arms, hugging me close.
"Shh,"
he told me. My body was shaking from whatever had just happened to me.
"It's gonna be okay. His wrath has passed,"
he said quietly in my ear. I clung to him till I could stop shaking. When I finally stepped away from him, I was surprised to see that the sun was out, shining brightly as if there was never a storm. Amazed, I looked around but froze when I saw that everybody was staring at me in wonder, including Gina. She broke away from the judge and came to me, throwing herself into my arms like she used to do when she was a little girl. I ain't never heard you sing like that. Your voice, it was different. It was like it wasn't like before. It was better, more powerful. It was like power sung through you. I opened my mouth to question her further, but Right then, justice threw the woman and the man who brought the tarot cards inside the camp at the judge's feet. The judge was angry. I had never seen him so. Gina, she hadn't either, and I could tell by the way she squeezed my hand.
Look what you have brought upon us,
He yelled down at the couple who was huddled together at his feet. I looked around and for the first time saw that the street was littered with the dead, blood fiends and dragons. But what made it heart-wrenching was the fact that many of our people lay dead next to them. Bass and Doughboy stood just outside the clinic looking our way. There was sadness in their eyes, and I wondered if He-Man and Keys were dead. Relief washed over me when I saw that Jazz was taking Karen and his girls in his arms. They had been safe inside the Iman's house. The attack had happened at the gate, so a lot of the people that were further into town were safe because Monroe and his army kept the enemy pretty much at the gate. But many of the new arrivals and some of Justice people that had set up camp in this area were holding dead loved ones in their arms weeping.
It wasn't us,
The man cried as he came to his feet.
Those cards have been in my wife's family for years. If it weren't for them, we would be dead by now. Blame this catastrophe on someone else.
The judge's nostrils flared as he balled up his fist to control his rage.
Were you not told at the gate that no idols were allowed inside and no witchcraft?
He growled through clenched teeth. The man swallowed before he hesitated not. The judge moved so quick he startled all of us. 1 minute he was standing there looking at the man as if he wanted to crush him, and the next he had Justice sword in his hands, bringing it in a swoop over his head, showing his swordsmanship, before slicing down violently, nearly severing the man's head. When the woman jumped to her feet to attack him, Monroe grabbed her and snapped her neck, letting her body fall next to her husband's on the ground. But the judge wasn't done. He turned angry eyes to face the crowd that was surrounding him. Everyone looked at him startled because no one had ever seen him so angry.
Guards,
He yelled to the men who guarded the gates.
from this moment on, I want every bag, body, and vehicle searched before they come through those gates. We cannot let anything like this happen again.
He turned to look at the people, many of whom were holding dead loved ones in their arms.
I am sorry this happened to you today, but we can't say that we weren't warned. We've read the story of our ancestors coming out of Egypt many times. Stories that we have to learn from as not to repeat the same mistakes. I am ashamed this happened to us. I am ashamed I let something so vile through those gates. But let this be a lesson. Watch. If you see someone harboring the unclean, run them through. Don't let it come to this.
His voice broke at the end as if he was fighting tears.
We have a long road to recovery. Gather your loved ones and prepare them for burial. We mourn together as a nation. We thank Yahuwah for his mercy. But we have to do better. We've come too far to repeat the same mistakes.
He turned, and suddenly he seemed so tired.
I need every able body to help. We need to get the dead buried outside of these walls.
I felt Monroe's body stiffen. Abir came to stand next to us, looking up towards the top of the mountain. Standing there looking down at us was the man I seen the day Monroe had found me. The man he'd fought and chased. The man that looked so much like my husband, he could be him. Only he was covered in tattoos. The wind blew his coat open, revealing the fact that he didn't have on a shirt. A growl emitted from deep within Abir's throat. No, the growl came from Monroe. Then the sound of a horse galloping toward us drew all our attention. Monroe's white stallion charged directly for us. Just as it galloped past us, Monroe grabbed a hold of the saddle, throwing himself up on top of the animal. The wolf took off toward the gate. The stallion followed behind him. The man that looked down at us threw his head back and laughed before he too disappeared over the side of the mountain. "Who is that?" I asked. Nobody in particular. But it was Justice's deep voice that answered me.
That's your husband's demon.
Hey, Shalom family. How are y'all out there? Look, really quick, I wanted to first come and thank you guys for being so very patient with me. As y'all know, life does happen and situations change, whereas before I had a lot of spare time on my hand and I could sit and do more stories more often than I do these days. But y'all willing, I want to better you guys, and we're going to walk this out. And as long as I got breath, I'll be adding stories to this channel. Anyway, as y'all know, I do have to, help bring some shekels to the family, my husband and I, we have a huge family. We have 8 children, and so it's real. So, I want to let you guys know that for you out there who haven't been following me in my author Edwina Fort world, what are you guys waiting on? Right now, for everybody who have not read the story Redemption, it is free on Amazon right now. And that is Gabe and Yasmin's story. It is free on Amazon. As you know, I also came out with Redemption Earth's Cry, which is the second book to the Redemption series. That is Malek Black and Earth's story. You guys do not want to miss out on those. Those are very important opponents to this puzzle. So I'm going to post the link to Redemption, the free book, so that everybody who haven't read it, go ahead and get it while it's free. It's an uninterrupted story. No episodes. It's a complete story, so you don't have to wait, for me to come out with the next chapter, because it's already there, and for you who haven't sent me a friend request on Author Edwina Fort Facebook page, send me a friend request so you guys could stay in a loop on what's going on the other end of the spectrum. Anyway, I just wanted to stop and let you guys know that Redemption is free. So everybody who have not got it, please go get the copy and let me know what you think. All right. Shalom, fam. Love y'all.